Thank you, Mike. Congratulations, Chris. Well deserved. I've known Chris for a long time. And I want to thank the Portland Regional Chamber for unanimously endorsing at the board level Project Login. I'm going to talk a little bit about Project Login today. That's what the feature is. I was on WGAN. They want to talk about our logo, but I'm not here to talk about the logo. But even the logo has a precision point now in the E, and that talks a lot about technology. And Right Express uses technology solutions to drive our value proposition. So I think I'm no different than most people in this room, if not every person in this room. I love the state of Maine. I'd like to see it prosper. And I'd love to see our best and brightest, if they want to, stay in the state of Maine. And Project Login is a little bit about that, and I'll get more into it. Now, Educate Maine, two groups came together, basically, I guess 2011, the Coalition for Excellence in Education, which was really focused on K through 12, the Compact for Higher Education, focused on higher education, came together and said, we're looking more at the life cycle of education in the state of Maine. As I started to get involved with other CEOs in this project, it became clear this was the group that could help steward and drive and be the long-term steward of what we're trying to set up as a template. And I'll talk more about that today. So let's talk a little bit about Project Login. If you look at the logo, it talks about engaging the hearts and the minds of students if they're in K through 12 or if they're in higher education, making sure we educate them for the jobs of tomorrow, and then employing them. So looking at the life cycle of education right through employment, and let's try to do that well. And we're focusing on an IT area where there's probably the largest job gap. It's private sector and business led. So Jim Page, University of Maine Chancellor, who's a partner in this, understands this has to be private sector led. The private sector saying, I have a need, I want to see if the university system, if the community college system will line up with me, line up with us, and try to fill that talent gap. So we want to continue doing that, and we'll talk how this can be a replicable template for other disciplines in the future. Aligning K through 12, making sure that we're filling those business needs and talent needs, making sure we're creating jobs in the state. Hopefully our best and brightest are staying in the state, strengthening Maine businesses, the economy. How can the economy prosper if we can create these additional jobs? And I know the Chamber takes this on as a challenge. If we're successful and we can make this something that's sustainable, it will attract other businesses to Maine, saying, look what Maine's doing in the business community working with the education system. So that's a little bit about what Project Login is. How did it come together? This goes back to December of 2010. So I got together with some other CEOs of these organizations. So John Ayers, Kevin McCarthy, Larry Wold, Bill Caron, Rich Peterson, Michelle Hood, and myself sat down and said, there's a call to action. How can we create more jobs? Sometimes some of us are shipping jobs outside of the state. What can we do to make sure we keep jobs in the state? And we said the only thing we want to advocate for is higher education. So hold that thought. So we were out there. We were talking about our program. I was speaking in front of some different people, and Rich Patino heard me speak and came back and said, I want to put a bold goal out there for the University of Maine system, not just for Southern Maine, but the entire university system. I'll get to that goal in a second. And then we kept working this, and more people became involved. So we have the two largest chambers now endorsing this program. Bangor Savings has put $50,000 in to help support the program overall. The community college now is completely behind doing some things to help this program succeed in the future. Pierce Atwood put money in, but also Andrea Chinket-Maker was our program manager, driving this for the last year and a half, and now she's handing all of this off to Educate Maine, but she was already a program manager under Educate Maine. So we've raised almost $670,000 to date, so there's been a lot of money put into it to say, but we had to build things, and we'll talk about what we build. And that all culminated in Project Login. So if you're with me so far, I'll tell you how we even took it from that first stage to where we are today. So we got together and we said, okay, we want to advocate for higher education. We got our HR groups together and said, what are our talent needs in the next 5 years? And the biggest talent gap was in IT. By far in IT, it was in computer scientists. We needed more computer scientists. We said we're going to create 500 to 700 jobs. This was loose information, but it was in that range over the next 5 years in the IT area, more specifically in the computer science area. So again, we're thinking it's higher education. Chuck Lawton corroborated our information by saying, you're right, there's a real shortfall. If I look at through 2018, the talent gap between associate degrees, baccalaureate degrees, and basically computer scientists and information scientists, it's almost 1,000 shortfall. So it was just saying everything we knew, there's a real issue. And that was the biggest shortfall of all the degrees, if you will, in terms of the University of Maine system. So going back, what we found out was in 2009, in the entire university system in Maine, only 50 computer scientists and information scientists graduated. Big problem. 5 times that, you're not even going to get to 250. You'll never get to the 500. The good news is, I'm not sure if we had any impact. We'll take it if you want to give it to us. But last year, there was a graduation class of 71 through the entire university system. So at least it's getting better. But we have a bold goal that we said we would put in place. We thought, well, what's the problem? Are there not enough capacity? Plenty of capacity. The issue goes back into K through 12. So I was on WGAN this morning, and some of you have heard me use these stats. But 2 years ago, I read stats in the Portland Press-Herald that were pretty disturbing. So we were just young and starting into this program. The stats said, if you ask a 4th grader in this country, what do you want to be when you grow up? 75% in the country and in Maine say STEM-related. Astronaut, doctor, scientist. Fast forward to 8th grade, ask the same question. In the country, that 75% goes down to 50%. In Maine, it goes from 75 to 25%. So we've lost their hearts and minds in K through 12 of even thinking about a STEM-related degree. And we don't care if it starts out as STEM. If they want to narrow into computer science, that's fine. But that's the issue. So we really said we have to attack all 3 of these areas. What can we do to stimulate the awareness of good jobs in K through 12? How can we work higher education to be more effective working with the businesses? How can the businesses be more engaged? So that's kind of the life cycle of the past. So the university system said we want to double the number of computer scientists, information scientists, computer engineers by 2017. So 142. That's the goal within the university system. So, bold goal, we applaud it, but a lot of work to do to get there. This just talks about some of the problems. We're outstripping the demand. The demand is growing faster than, states around this country are putting supply of IT people into place. There's no doubt that it's an issue. Job openings are happening, but they're not being fulfilled in the state. 1/3 of these jobs are going offshore. Even in Maine, people are outsourcing. Some of the big businesses now have operations offshore because they can't find the talent here. WEX will at times have 100 contractors doing IT work because we can't find full-time workers in the state of Maine. We have probably about 140 full-time workers in IT. So that's kind of the issue. If you look at the jobs have very low unemployment rates, plenty of jobs being posted. So we've got to change the game to really try to bring that prosperity, keep the best and brightest in the state of Maine. So here's the future state. So I've taken Chuck's numbers, 986, our numbers. I'm going to take a drink because I actually had a workout this morning and I'm getting a little dry. So how do we get to the 142? Ron Cantor's here, and Ron Cantor was on our team, and he started to work with the University of Southern Maine and 2 other Southern Maine community colleges on an articulation program to basically allow students in the associate area of the community colleges to transfer their credits into USM. The good news is now all the presidents have endorsed the ability to try to do that across the entire community college system. And John Fitzsimmons is behind this as well. So we now have the entire community college system saying, how can we have this articulation capability into the University of Maine system and maybe other colleges? So that's great because it's a cheaper entry point if we can get high school students to say, you can start at the community college, and whatever you do there in IT, if you want to move on to a bachelor's degree, you can do it. And then there has to be awareness programs in K through 12. So we brought together in this steering committee that I'm going to talk about and just show you in a second, best practices from people like Unum who have been great in driving education initiatives in the state. They've had probably best practices of how do you engage with high school students to bring them in and show them these great jobs and how fun they are. We had Dana Humphreys from the engineering program in Orono, who's done a great job filling the engineering seats. He used his best practices, so a lot of that's come to play in these areas. And these are the three areas that we kept focusing on in driving this initiative. Collective impact, I don't have all the logos, but there's a lot of people involved. If you look at the groups we have in place today driving the different priorities, they're covering a lot of these companies. They're covering other educators from K through 12 to higher education. So there's a lot of people involved trying to drive this program. Here's the steering committee that got put in place in 2011. So this was really to attack those three areas that I talked about. You can see there are IT people from the private sector. There are people from the education system, primarily higher education at that time. So really driving, what can we do to change the game in all three areas? The awareness in K through 12, higher ed, aligning more with private sector. What can private sector do? 25 recommendations. Those 25 recommendations ended up with 7 priorities. And we tried to say, how do they span the 3 areas of focus? The website, which I'm going to show you in a second, hopefully says if I'm a parent, if I'm a student, if I'm an educator, if I'm an employer, I can go in there and see resumes, I can see people that want to do internships, I can post internships, I can look at summer programs for science or math if I'm a parent. There's all kind of things for students to look at in terms of job opportunities, the professions that we're talking about. So that's covering the gamut. The marketing program is primarily K through 12 and higher education. So what can we do again in both of those to keep people in the seats if they're in higher education, but to promote STEM and particularly computer science in K through 12. Paid internships is going to be key initially. If we can get paid internships increased, we think we can keep more people in the seats and more people, really looking at this as a degree that they might want to pursue. We interviewed, I think it was 350 students. 75% of those students said they would be interested in a paid internship that are already in the seats in the university system. And 75% said, of those, even if it was a lower paying job, I'd rather work in my profession. And we've had great results out of the paid internships in the past. College readiness, how do we make sure that we have the kids understand they've got to be ready, though? These are tough jobs in terms of, degrees. You have to work on your profession and your readiness in the college area. College retention would be solved by the paid internships. You have adult learners, we want to encourage that. And then clearly more computer-related activities. The dark green is just saying I think all of you can have some impact, and I'll talk about this at the end, on those areas in particular. At least go to the website, explore it, take a look at it. So here's some of the short-term successes. We've had this articulation degree, and it's now going to be expanded. So Ron did great work really saying, here's how we can do this with SMCC. We had York County, we had Central Maine Community College, so all of those have worked with the University of Southern Maine on this program, and now it's going to be expanded. We also found out that maybe calculus was an issue for some of the students. And the CEO said, I don't need calculus-based computer scientists. I'm okay if it's statistical-based or discrete math. So USM changed their curriculum to have both calculus, discrete math, and statistical-based computer science degrees. So, we're making the changes, we're making the impacts. And then we have the 2 largest chambers because we need business to be behind this, because we think, again, the paid internships, if businesses of any size will say, I want to be involved, I want to help, we all need technology. And then the money that's been raised so far, and we have more money in the pipeline, but we know we have to keep raising more money if we're going to be successful in the future. Here's the plan of attack. Phase 1 is basically the paid internships. How can we increase that? Ed McCursey is really taking the lead there, saying I want to work with businesses to understand what their paid internships will look like in this coming year. And I think all of us that are involved so far are finding ways to increase from what we did last year. Campus receptions. There was one at Farmington recently and one in Orono, and we heard the reception was great between the students. We didn't send Mike Dubyak up there. We sent one of our IT people up there, a couple of them, and they really engaged with the students to really let them know these are great jobs. These are fun jobs. Here's why I like working at a company like WEX or IDEX or Unum or whatever. Stimulate interest in the community college transfers, so that can be a feeder system. And now with having that articulation degree, it should be easier to get more into a bachelor's degree. And the adult learners, how can we make sure there's a team, as we said, a priority that's being made on adult learners? What can we do to get those people into the seats in the university system or college system? And we're going to test in 2 K through 12, probably 6 through 12 programs. How do we start to raise the awareness of the students sitting in the seats and try to get their minds and hearts back into when they're an 8th grader saying, yeah, I want to still take a look at a STEM-related opportunity. Phase 2 will be including all colleges and universities. So, yes, Jim Page is very involved. He's put money into this. He has his goal to double, but he knows we're going to go and be agnostic. So we want all the colleges to be part of this. We want this to be a statewide initiative. We're going to do marketing, as I said, then beyond the 2 schools into other schools, more adult learners, and basically into the community colleges as well. So I think USM is already into some of the community colleges where they're marketing to those students in IT how you can articulate, how you can transfer those credits if you want to go for a bachelor's degree. I talked earlier about this could be good long term. We want to make this scalable and replicable. So we don't want to do it just for IT and just for computer scientists. If we can do this well, you should be able to lay this template over any discipline in the future. So Educate Maine becomes the backbone organization that understands how do you get a collective impact working on behalf of the private sector to fill a talent gap. And you want to make it available to anybody else. I'm sure Rich Peterson or Michelle Hood would say, I'd love to have it for nurses, but they were willing to start with computer scientists to really get this down, really make sure the model works. So again, that's the long-term goal. This is just the beginning. If we can focus on this and make this work and make this successful, then others can step in to say to Educate Maine, hey, we saw what you did with the computer science, information science program. We'd like you to think about it even with this. It could be a trade association. When I met with the Maine State Chamber, they had a trade association group there saying at the end, yep, that could work for us as well, not just for higher ed. So Project Login. So there's a website. I've already talked about how we want to engage and basically educate and then employ, so we want that entire life cycle. Hopefully it makes more sense now. Engage them early on, engage them while they're in college, educate them on these programs, and then get them right into jobs with companies in the state of Maine. This is one of the shots of the website where basically if you're looking to explore professions, along the bottom it's explore jobs, explore professions, explore education. So there's a number of things you can look at. Along the top, it's students and parents and educators and employers, so there's something for everybody. There's a software that matches interns with the different job openings or the jobs that people are posting for internships, so even that can match up resumes, so students can put their resumes out there and say, here's the things I'd like to do. Businesses can put in their paid internships or their internships, and it will start to match things up. So it's a website that we think is for all of the stakeholders that can have an impact on this program. This is just a site of some of the internships that are posted right now. I'm sure we'll see a lot more as the summer gets closer. WEX in particular knows we're going to step up from last year considerably over the number of internships we had in the IT area. So how can you help? I think the one thing to do is really go to Project Login, create your own profile, put your company out there, so at least students know who you are and what you do. Hopefully, consider doing an internship and post the internship so that we really believe it's going to keep the students in where they are today in terms of their seats, but also it's going to show that if I'm in K through 12, wow, there's a real opportunity here to work with businesses even while I'm in college and to really understand what it means to do some of these things that I have an interest in. Promote STEM and particularly Project Login. So if you're on the Board of Education, if you are a parent, if you know people in K through 12, higher education, please talk about it. Please build it up, because I think this is a program that if it's successful, I think, as I said, has other opportunities beyond even what we're doing today. And the future would be, let us prove this, but at some point in the future, I think there's an opportunity that basically we can do this for other disciplines. I'll end this by saying over the summer we had 3 interns in IT that we hired. And one of the women that got hired said, when I came in, because she was, I talked to her at the end when she basically was done with their internship. When I came into this program, I had no intention of staying in the state of Maine, and I had no intention of working for a large employer. I now want to stay in the state of Maine, and I want to work for WEX, and we hired her. So it says that you can make an impact. You can keep the best and brightest, but they have to know there's opportunities. She didn't know anything about WEX. She didn't know until she got involved in a paid internship. So I think we can make a difference collectively if we all can kind of say this is something that makes sense in this particular discipline, but beyond this discipline. And that's kind of what we're focusing on. And I hope, again, we all agree we love the state. We want to keep our best and brightest here. I think we all can help out if we want to. So thank you for your time.